Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is a show where we pick a movie and discuss it every week, just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the Russian World War II drama, Come and See. Our thoughts and more are coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1985, Come and See was directed by Elem Klimov and stars Alexei Kravchenko, Olga Mironova, and Vladas Bagdonas. Sorry if there's any mispronunciation of those names. After finding an old rifle, a young boy joins the Soviet resistance movement against ruthless German forces and experiences the horrors of World War II. It is ranked 90 on IMDb's Top 250 and currently has a 4.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd and is ranked number 2 on its Top 250. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for this film. There are some things that happen in this movie that you probably don't want to know about before watching the movie. So, pause here. It's okay. And then come back a little bit afterward, and we'll talk about the movie in more detail. We don't want to spoil this movie for you. Just go ahead and do it. But stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what movie we're covering next week, because it's the start of a three-parter.
A trilogy, as some people would call it.
Is it our first trilogy on the...
No.
Okay, it's not our first trilogy, but it is the next one. All right, Kevin, so this was my pick this week, and very plainly and obviously, this is so highly rated on the Letterboxd Top 250, and it's very high on the IMDb Top 250 as well. Whenever the conversation turns to war movies, I always hear this movie mentioned. So it was time to watch it. And I think it was going to be kind of funny to watch it after 1917, to go from World War I to World War II. We're going to be covering a Korean War movie next week. No, I'm just kidding. We're not. But this is going to be one of those refreshing things because it's a World War II movie that's not from an American perspective. It's from the Soviet perspective, which is not something we typically see here in the U.S. There are some other movies that we do have access to, movies like T-34, which is also supposed to be pretty good. Not as good as this, but like in terms of like ratings or anything, but it's supposed to be an enjoyable film. But this one, though, had you heard anything about Come and See before we did this?
Absolutely nothing.
All
Didn't
right.
even know it existed.
So you went in with the like blindest expectations and like information.
Again, with these movies that are so proclaimed as in the top 250, I do like reading the synopsis before, just to make sure I know what I'm getting myself into. Reading the synopsis kind of told me the story a little bit, but
Sure.
But once we get into more details, it expands on that, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. But let's go ahead. One final spoiler warning, for the film. So we'll go ahead and get that out of the way. So this is both of our first times watching this movie.
Correct.
And this is definitely a movie that is, I think, like Stalker, is going to change anytime you watch it again after this. You'll probably have a little bit of a different interpretation, a little bit of a different kind of reaction. But I feel like this is a little bit easier to understand because at the end of the day, it is a World War II movie. Just from a different kind of perspective. So what were your thoughts coming out of the movie? Because I feel like this is going to be one of those ones where the scores are different for both of us. But I feel like we're going to be on the same page on a couple of things. So what were your thoughts coming out of it?
Thoughts coming out of it. The main actor in this movie is absolutely fantastic. And also the cinematography in this movie is drop dead gorgeous. The only thing I'm gonna put two positives and a negative for me. A negative is there's a lot of space where I wanted dialogue a little bit. I know that some movies don't need dialogue, but there was a lot of empty space that I could have wanted something to listen to. I know, like when they're in the woods and he meets the girl, all he does is crying and everything like that. But I would like to see more of them talking to each other, because we don't really know anything about the girl. we know everything about him, so she's kind of like a mystery person to us, and I didn't have that attachment to her as I would like a supporting actor or actress. I didn't really care for her at the end of what happens to her, because I'm like, oh, because she said that one thing, this is what she's become. It's and that's what I got from it. So maybe a little bit more of a dynamic between those two. I think I would have enjoyed the movie a little bit more. But that's my critique on it.
Sure, and I think at least the kind of way that I interpreted that is that, I mean, obviously this movie does have its plain moments for you to see, but there are
Hmm.
also some more artistic moments as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I do think that the relationship between the main character and the girl, um, I don't think it's supposed to represent like an actual relationship.
Okay.
More so, I think that this entire movie is little portraits of different experiences that soldiers had during this time period.
Okay.
That it's more representative of a like off the spur fling, perhaps that they bonded over a shared trauma, or
Mm.
that
Hmm.
they both
Hmm.
had trauma, which is why they're both crying, and then they came together.
Yep.
You know, that little bit of a potential beauty in all that madness, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
But I do understand, like, also the kind of perspective, right? That that's a little forced and a little quick.
Yeah.
But when you're in a, you know, this movie, like, kind of a sidestep here, it feels apocalyptic,
Yeah. It
and
does.
so, like, when you're in that situation, you're gonna do, you got to feel good as much as you got to actually, do your job, and so you are going to pursue the things that make you feel good and the things that make you happy in those little few moments that you have, because as we know, this kid goes through the fucking ringer in this movie.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's kind of weird. It's kind of nice to set up those kind of positive moments, but also it like feeding a little bit more into that artistic side of it. Everything with the bird
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
was very, like, the shot of the bird looking into their little hut creeped me out.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and if you think about it, like, there's a part where they're walking towards the village and it's following them, which I don't know if you saw that.
I saw it in the
But
background. Yeah.
it's really, if you think about it, the Fyodor, I think is the character's main name. I'm gonna have to
I think so. Yeah.
not Fyodor, Fliora.
Mhm.
He when he's marching out into the swamp area, he tramples on a bird nest.
Mhm.
So in the movie, again, we've already done spoiler alert, he doesn't actually kill anyone in the movie. The
No,
only thing that he kills, and
it's the
immediately
bird.
the parent is stalking him.
Yeah. Mhm.
That lingering kind of guilt over that action is following him. Granted, it goes away as soon as, like, the next horrible tragedy happens, but it's a really interesting artistic way of expressing the kind of guilt that he had over doing it, because he pauses after he does that and he's just like, oh shit, what, like, but I can't stop.
Yeah.
um
Mhm. But it's like the bird is the thing that's in the back of his mind. You
yeah,
can give it that kind of aspect for it.
and physically, right, it's behind him, and
Mhm.
I forget the girl's name, maybe Olga, is that what it is? Oh, is the actress's name Glasha. um but yeah, I mean, I can understand, but I think that the movie would have suffered if they had told you what the characters were feeling instead of showing you. I
Okay.
think it
Mhm.
is a very, film is a visual medium, right? You should show, not tell, as much as
Mhm.
possible, and I think that it's brilliantly done here. It's in the look on Fliora's face the entire movie. Like, you
Mhm.
can kind of understand what he's feeling. I would say the only part that's a little questionable is the part where he's just laughing and crying for no reason.
Yeah.
But I also think he's doing that just to match Glasha and try and get her attention in a way.
Mhm.
Um, but everything is on his face.
Yeah.
Everything is on his face.
Mhm.
And like you said, Alexei Kravchenko is. I'm. It's probably, if it's not the best performance I've ever seen, it's in the top 5. He
Mhm.
is absolutely incredible in this movie. He's supposed to be what? He's supposed to be 13 years old. He's probably a little bit older than that. Um,
But not
but
much.
but not by much. And he
Yeah.
he is embodying all of the little visual things that, like, there are moments in this movie where he is legitimately supposed to be terrified, and there's a lot of different ways that you could show being terrified or scared or haunted or whatever. But the way he does it in just sitting there and shaking and trembling is so realistic.
Yeah,
when your senses are overloaded like that.
You're not going to make a face. You're not going to scrunch your nose or anything. You're just going to sit there and just have like a body meltdown, pretty much, is what I got from it. Was like an anxiety attack. You just sit there, you can hear the heartbeat, you just sit there and just like tap your toes, stuff like that. You don't want to show emotions, but that's how you're showing it, by doing those little things.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful performance. Just from beginning to end, it is a perfect performance, I think. And I mean, we obviously don't stick around with any of the supporting cast for long enough. I do think Sasha is good in what she's doing as well. But no one else is really around long enough, because like in war, not a lot of people survive, especially during this time period. So it's like, it kind of makes sense. And I think that the brutality of this movie is also something to be appreciated. But I do want to kind of say, because you said that you had two positives and you had your negative. Were the two positives you had the performance and the cinematography?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll talk about the cinematography a little bit, because this movie is... I've heard a couple of... this movie's available to stream on the Criterion channel if you have access to it. And one of the bonus features is Roger Deakins, who, funny enough, is the cinematographer for 1917. And he was talking about how this movie was an inspiration for 1917. Didn't even know that when we were picking the movies. No. But he mentioned how, like, a lot of people say that his movie is beautiful, which is kind of interesting, because he doesn't think it's a beautiful movie because it's of the source material and everything.
Yeah.
But this is a movie where he thinks it is beautiful, but most people think that this movie is ugly. But that's not saying it's bad. Like, it's like it's a different portrayal of war. Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah, it's like his 1917 was beautiful in the way it was shot. This one's more gritty, and I don't want to say down to earth, but it's like it's more dirty. It looks like you are going through the trenches with him, no pun intended. But but that's what makes this movie, I feel, like a great movie, because again, us from America, we get the glorified war movies, and not like the nitty gritty, dirty war movies like Come and See. What was another one that we watched or know of? I forget.
1917.
No, that
Saving
was
Private Ryan.
No. Foreign movies that are
like a foreign war movie.
Yeah, that are well known.
We haven't really watched any. One. Yeah, but I mean, Papillon is well regarded, which is a World War II movie from, I believe, the Australian point of view. But I haven't seen it. Gotcha. There are others, but it's just the darkest.
Well, I feel like this is more enlightening. I feel like, because we don't get to see this type of war movie here.
Yes,
and I love it. Not saying it's horrible, but it's such a different pace than what we get here in the States.
Yes,
and
it's very similar to Stalker in that kind of pacing. You know, not as long, but
no,
it is similarly paced. But I do want to kind of hook on to what you said about the glorification, right? So we don't see a lot of different war stories in the U.S. No. We see a lot of films about battles we won, or where there's heroics involved, because at the end of the day, a lot of those war movies are made to glorify people who were in those events, or to glorify combat itself as a means of propaganda to get people to sign up for the military. That's not the intention, but it's a side effect of movies like that. So there's a very famous French film director named Francois Truffaut, who I believe we have one of his movies coming up. It'll be in July of next year. But he was on record saying that you cannot make a war movie that doesn't glorify war. every war movie will glorify some part of it.
Okay.
And I think he's wrong because of this movie.
Okay.
Because I do not think that this movie glorifies anyone.
Mm-mm.
The Russian, the Soviet resistance they're not as bad as the Germans are, because
Mm-hmm.
what the Germans do in this movie is incredibly heinous and
Yep.
probably one of the most disturbing sequences I've seen in a movie in a very long time, which we'll get to in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't you could glorify, oh, how you doing, brother, comrade, like it could have been anything like, uplifting, like spirit of the people type thing. But
Mm-hmm.
no, like everyone, literally, I think everyone that he is with dies, except for maybe Glasha, because I think she stays with all the townsfolk. But
Yeah, we're not really clear on that either.
yeah,
That's the thing.
because clarity goes out the window when you're in these kind of situations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and in many ways, like this is a war movie. This is a drama. This is a historical drama. I also like, it's not in the genre description for this. I would also label this a horror movie, because I
And
think that
mm-hmm.
like this movie is scarier than most horror movies I've seen, and it's not like like traditionally scary.
Yeah,
It
it's
is bloody, but not like Terrifier.
mm-hmm.
You
But
know,
it's just it's again a different perspective of horror. It's like these things actually happened,
yes.
kind of horror. Like I don't want to say real life horror, but that's what it was. That's what some people saw when this was happening.
To me, it is like Cure, which we watched a couple months ago. It is the scariest part of horror to me, and that is what human beings are capable of doing to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for religious reasons or for military reasons, whatever, right? That is the scariest thing to me, because that is the most realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is why this movie, I think, it is scary. Like, it is disturbing. It is not a pleasant viewing experience. This is not a movie I'm going to be rushing to watch again. I do really want to watch it again, though, and I will probably show it to people who are war movie fans, because I think this is still a perspective that a lot of people need to see.
Or like historians as well.
Yeah.
People, like, we'll get, if someone asks me a movie, hey, give me a movie that you think is terrifying, but is a war movie, I would give them this movie, because I don't want to give them like Hacksaw Ridge or Saving Private Ryan. I want to give them something that will disturb them, that they'll think about when you're like, oh shit, like that actually happened, and it did actually happen. We don't get that side of war in the States, and I want to see more war movies like this one, because
we need more.
mm-hmm.
Like, because you look at any movie that's like a war movie that we've gotten in the last couple of years, right? Hacksaw Ridge, or American Sniper, or like, they all glorify a person, or they glorify the idea of service, right? And it's once you watch a movie like this, it's going to be really weird for you, I think, because I think this is your first foreign language, or not American set war movie. It's going to be really interesting for you going forward to watch any American war movie, because you're gonna see it. You're gonna see the propagandistic type things that they do in those movies.
Yeah, and we're not saying those movies are bad that we just
no, by no means.
No means, but it's just, it's a different kind of movie. It literally, you can put like states war movies and then foreign war movies like up here. They're two different categories, I feel like, and we haven't crossed that threshold yet to be in talks with foreign war movies, because we don't have that kind of a movie yet, which I wish we would get. Like, I want to say like Civil War was a different war movie for me. A24.
Oh yeah,
which I absolutely loved, because it wasn't about war. It was about the photography of war.
Well, it is about war. It's just how you report on it.
Yeah, so it was a different type of war movie, and that I enjoyed it that way because I looked at it that way. This one is a war movie, but just from a different perspective, from another country, and it's so good. It is so good.
I mean, if you think about it too, right? I would say the closest we have to an American war movie that doesn't glorify war would probably be Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
but it still does. If you look back at it, they use like pop music when they're taking photos and doing like
Yep.
the executions and stuff, and it's just like it. You see it. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it's not trying to get you to join the military or anything, but it's just like
Mhm.
it's making it look badass. Which
Yeah, it is. But
which is
then
true.
it kind of takes you out of it because it's like, oh, it's actual war. But
Exactly.
yeah, I understand what you're going for. It's like, oh, throw this in there, throw this in there. This one is just you are with the actor in the woods in his village,
Mhm.
everything like that, and that is it. There's nothing to it.
Yeah. And before we kind of end out, though, I do want to talk about the um,
The building,
the building scene,
jeez.
which is probably, I think, the most. I mean, I've seen Schindler's List. I've seen movies that are supposed to be very disturbing,
Zone of interest.
Zone of Interest, things like that. This is one of the most disturbing sequences I've seen in probably this whole year. And
Yeah.
and even with the 31 for Halloween thing, like it's still like the way that it just happened. Like when they try and when the lady tries to leave with her kid, and then they throw her kid back into the building that's been locked with the entire town inside, and they
Mhm,
take her out
mhm.
because they say, leave your kids and come out, we'll let you go or whatever.
Yeah.
And then not only do they like shoot into the room a couple of times, I think before
The
anything,
fire. Yeah. Mhm,
but then like they just start lobbing grenades in through the window,
mhm.
and those are like there's like at least 10 grenades that they're in there, which would probably kill everyone in that room.
Yeah.
But people are still gonna be alive because they just have shrapnel and stuff. And then they start lighting it on fire. They throw Molotovs at it.
Mhm,
They throw torches and stuff at it, and then later on they have like the flamethrowers. And then not only that, you hear the people screaming inside the entire time.
mhm.
Um, the main character Fleora is also taken for a photo, and they're holding up
Oh,
like the
that
soldiers
was
are.
mm.
Oh my god, one of the best shots I think I've seen in a while, where they just have a gun to his head and where it's a close up of his face, and he
And
cocks the hammer back.
I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, okay.
Because you don't know if he's gonna live or not.
Mhm, mhm.
And then obviously they're clearing out because they've already killed everyone. So they're like, that girl we let out? We're gonna use her. And they literally just throw her in the back of a truck while they're driving away. You hear her screaming the entire time, and they just leave Fleora there, which is kind of odd. I don't know why. I mean, obviously he's a main character, so he has a little bit of plot armor, but like they just leave him there. And then later on, when Fleora finds that convoy's been ambushed by the
Oh,
resistance movement.
that was sorry, that was a cool scene. Kind
Yeah,
of like okay, keep going.
yeah. The begging for mercy when you showed none is
Mhm.
incredible. But then when the girl comes back was
Mm.
just, oh man, that hurt so much.
Yeah.
Like this movie is not easy to watch.
No,
I'm gonna tell you
it
that right
is
now,
not.
but it is essential. And
Mhm.
I think it's hilarious because it's a Russian movie, and I think if you showed this movie in Russia, maybe Ukraine wouldn't have happened. Who knows? But the last thing I want to talk about, I know I said that before the building scenes. The last thing I want to talk about is the ongoing thing where they have characters just looking into the camera.
Mhm.
And as you go on, you see Fleor at the beginning of the movie, and you see him degrade and
Yeah.
literally just become that meme of the soldier with the helmet, that goes around like the 1,000-yard stare thing.
Mhm.
And like for me, I don't like prolonged eye contact. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
It's just uncomfortable for me when I have
Yeah.
to look someone in the eye for a long time. But this film makes it important, and I can't look away. Like these characters go through it so much, and you see it. You
Mhm.
see everything, and it's show not tell in the best possible way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up here. So
Mhm.
Kevin, this was my pick this week, so I'll go ahead and go first. I said that Come and See is part war film, part horror film. It's a terrifying descent into hell that's just as beautiful as it is disturbing. I feel like this should be mandatory viewing for any, I would say, a little bit higher level film fan, not just your casual film goer, but like anyone who actually starts looking at films a little bit more seriously. I think that the more people that watch this, the more people are going to try their hardest to avoid conflict. It's truly that affecting of a movie. And so I gotta say, it's another Russian masterpiece in my opinion. It's gonna get 100 out of 100 from me. I really can't find any faults here, and I tried. But it joins the 5-star film list for me, so I gave it 100. I mean,
Nice.
it's not a controversial opinion given it's everything on Letterboxd for it, but you know.
Mine might be a little bit controversial, but yeah. So I wanted to start off saying that this movie is fantastically shot. The acting in this is amazing as well, and the war horror in this movie is absolutely disturbing. I did find myself kind of lagging behind a little bit because of the no dialogue, and maybe it was a little too artsy for me. And I'm not used to that yet, especially with a foreign film, having to read subtitles and be a little artsy. So I did give it a 78 out of 100, but I understand what they were going for and how beautiful it was, and how it's just so dirty and down to earth. And I absolutely loved it because of that reason.
So the question now falls to you. What do you think of Come and See? If you've seen it, you should have paused the video earlier and hopefully not spoiled it for yourself. But go ahead and leave your comments down in the comment section. We'd love to hear what you have to think about the movie. But just remember to be respectful of one another, because you never know what someone else is going through. But next week we're changing up genres and we're getting into probably one of the biggest trilogies of all time. We're covering the first film in the Lord of the Rings, and that is the Fellowship of the Ring. This has been a long time coming. So excited to finally talk about the first film next week. But make sure to watch it. I mean, most of you have probably already seen it, but if you've not seen it, don't get spoiled. That would be bad. But thank you so much for watching. Of course, we have this show that goes live every Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's just in time for your journey, commute, whatever you want to call it. But of course, we also have our Real Watchers live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk movie news, reviews, and so much more. But of course, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And until next time, make sure to keep those eyes on the screen.